Hi, it's Daryl again, ready to cook you another meal or show you some tips here for making something maybe you don't make too often. I have to apologize because I'm under a little duress today because my daughter and I just bought some habanero potato chips and my mouth is on fire! Today we're going to be making Spaetzle, or German pasta or homemade noodles. And here's some of the ingredients you're going to need. You're going to need 8 eggs. This is a double batch. 8 eggs. You need 4 cups of flour that I pre-measured already, a little bit of water, and this little gadget here. It's a Spaetzle maker, it's a noodle maker. I'll explain to you another way when I start making them how to do them. There's a couple ways you can do it, but I'll get into that once we get rolling here. So what you're going to want to do first is just crack all your eggs into a bowl. I guess if you want to see the old chef way, you do it like this. It's a little faster. So there's your 8 eggs. And you want to give them a little whisk. There's a lot of hand work in this. It makes you get big muscles. This is the way I was taught. I was taught from German chefs. Most recipes you'll find, they'll tell you just to make this, mix it together and to put it in the press, but when I did my apprenticeship, they said it was very important to get lots of air into the dough. So I'm going to show you what's involved. So here's my flour. I'm just going to make a little well in the middle. I'm going to dump it all in one shot. And of course, you're going to want to have to wash your hands because you're going to have to get in there. Spoon won't work. Spoon won't work, or a wooden spoon, because it's going to get totally caked. And it's always good to keep a little bit of water onto the side because you're going to see it's going to get quite stiff. But you want to keep it that way. You don't want a runny sauce or a sauce dough. Can you see in there? Mm-hmm. So you can see how it's coming together. And it's going to form little balls like this because there's not enough liquid in it. So I'm going to start adding a little bit of liquid to it and start working it.
And it gets really sticky, doesn't it?
It gets really sticky and really gooey, and you're going to think that you're making a big mess. Sorry, I just have to do something. So it's getting there. Don't add too much water because you don't want to get into that that problem of too much water. And once you start adding more flour and more things to try and thinning it out, what happens is you just end up with a big bowl of glue, and it's not good. So you want to try and stick to the original recipe, which is just 4 eggs to 2 cups of flour is your basic recipe. So it's getting there. I know it looks awful, but trust me, it'll get better.
How much was in that cup?
About a half a cup of water is in there. So now it's starting to get there. It's formed this really gross looking ball. You'll see just a little bit more water. It's starting to loosen up. Now I can feel it's starting to glide through my fingers. I don't know if you can see how that's working there. It looks really gross. You're thinking, oh my god, what have I just created? The blob. Now, here comes the fun part now, is you have to cup your hand, and you're going to pick up your bowl, and you're going to start slapping it. You're mixing it and slapping it. And what you're doing is incorporating the air into the mix. And it takes quite a while, but through the magic of editing, we're not going to watch me do the whole thing. I'll beat it, and then I'll tell you about how long it took to get, and then I'll show you what we're looking for in the end product. It's still a little bit sticky, so I'm just going to add a little bit of water, not much. There, feels good now. Okay, and we'll see you in a minute. Cupping your hands, and then you're going right into the mix. And you can hear that popping noise. Mm-hmm. That's the air going into the dough. Okay. About 3 or 4 minutes has elapsed now, and yes, I did take a couple breaks because my arm was killing me. But this is what you're going to be looking for. Is you're going to look for that consistency, and you're going to look for, see this? That's a little bubble right there. See that? So you've been incorporating the air into the mix, and what you're doing, it's the same thing as if you're making bread. You're developing the gluten with the flour and the eggs, and you need that structure to make a nice light noodle. If you don't, they're going to be really thick and doughy and not very palatable. So when you're going to keep your dough just at room temperature, you don't have to put it in the fridge or let it rest or any of that. It's ready to go, and we're just waiting. You need a large pot of boiling salted water on the stove ready to go, and you're going to need another bowl with ice water in it. Yes, there used to be ice in it.
About 20
but
minutes.
just very cold water, because you're going to be pre-poaching these off. You could do these to order. You can have a nice roasting or a fry pan ready to go with melted butter in it and take it straight from the water straight in. Or like we're doing for our dinner tonight, our guests aren't coming for another 3 or 4 hours. We're going to pre-cook them, cool them off, shock them in cold water, and put them in the fridge coated with a little bit of oil. And then when the guests come, all I have to do is toss them in a frying pan with butter, and away we go. Almost ready to go. Our water's come to a nice boil. We have our dough ready. And we have our Spaetzle press. As you can see here, this is from Germany. Here. It comes open like this and just presses out the bottom. There are different style presses, and what some people can do is they take a colander, a large hole colander, and they'll put it in the colander and hold it over top of the boiling water and force it through with a rubber spatula. It comes actually quite close to what we're going to be making here. The real way is I was taught by a chef called Nico Rotman at the Hyatt Regency in Vancouver. And he used to work in Hamburg at the train station, and all he did when he was an apprentice was made Spaetzle all day long. And what he had was a big wood board, and on it was a ceramic tile with a big handle, and he'd tuck it under his arm like this, and he'd take a big scoop of the dough mix onto his thing, and he'd take a spatula and he'd hold it over the water, and he'd chop really quick, and he'd make thin little thin little noodles. It was amazing to watch somebody do this. I don't quite have that talent level, so that's why I'm cheating and using a machine. So, just so you know, there are lots of different ways. Some people like to dip their tools into the water a little bit to get them a little bit wet so the dough doesn't stick quite as much, but be careful because you're working with boiling water. So all you're going to do is I use this ice cream scoop because it's just easier to grab the noodle mix, the dough. So I put about 3 scoops in there. Go over your boiling water and squeeze. And you want to move around your pot so that they don't come all out in one big bulb. And there we go. I finished pressing. Now I'll just cut it all off. Now it cooks really fast. Oopsie! I forgot that.
Oh. I can edit this.
Close. So as you can see, they float to the top. So it's kind of like that old pierogi adage or gnocchi or any other kind of dumpling. They're ready to go. The noodles are ready, and then straight into the cold water. And they've stopped cooking right away. You have to make sure that your water doesn't get
Too hot.
hot again, or what's going to happen is you're going to have a big sticky gooey mess. So again, while those are cooking, you can load up your machine for the next one. It's not really a machine.
Press.
You're the machine. Those are ready to go. Do they look good, camera person?
Mm-hmm. They look delicious.
There, and you can see that's the finished product. Okay, so I'm on my last batch now, and I'm finished. So I'll just show you what you like to do if you're pre-doing these ahead of time. Okay, so now we want to drain them in a colander. And I like to just put a little bit of cold water on them again, just to make sure. That they're all cooled off. You don't want them, like I said, keep your water quite cold. You don't want them to warm up because they'll just be a sticky, doughy mess after. So now, get yourself a clean bowl. Just a little splash of vegetable oil, like a tablespoonful. Just mix that up in your colander. It just keeps them from all sticking together in a mass. So you can see we've got quite a bit here. That's probably enough for 5 or 6 people. For dinner, there's different ways to eat them. Most people, it's like I said, sauteed in a pan with butter. I like to get them a little bit brown and crispy on the edges. They're absolutely delicious. Salt, pepper, and a little bit of nutmeg. If you have a fresh nutmeg clove, just a little scrape on top is excellent. Other people eat them with warm milk for breakfast, and some people will fry them in the morning and they'll put maple syrup on them. They're also very delicious. So that's it for today for Spaetzle lesson.